Why is it that your photos look just like everyone else's? How do you find your thing? You're doing everything right, learning techniques, practicing composition, but somehow the photos still feel generic. Meanwhile, there are photographers whose style is so distinctive you'd recognize their work in a lineup of 1,000 images. What are they doing differently? Today, I'm breaking down the exact 4-step system I used to develop my own style. A consistent look that works whether I'm taking photos of buildings, landscapes, or people. And it starts with a quote completely outside of photography by none other than Bruce Lee that sums up the entire game in one sentence. Absorb what is useful, discard what is not, and add what is uniquely your own. Your style isn't this magically unique idea you invent from nothing. So what are those distinctive photographers doing? They've started making intentional choices about what fits their way of seeing. They know what techniques to keep and what to discard, what works for them and their unique eye. And that's exactly what this system is designed to help you do. Step 1 is to analyze. So what does that mean? Pick 8 or 10 of your favorite photographers and analyze their work. Literally make notes on it. Make notes on what exactly you like about it, what drew you to it in the first place. And before you comment, yes, 8 to 10 photographers feels like a lot. Start with 3 or 5 if that's overwhelming. But studying the artists ahead of you is what's really going to help you improve. And the reason we're using so many is so we don't get stuck copying one person. Because again, it's not about copying, but learning and figuring out what resonates with you. And no vague notes like moody, try to be specific. Technical things like uses backlight, wide-angle lenses, foreground layering. You're not analyzing to replicate their work, you're identifying techniques, the tools they're using that resonate with you. Warm colors, deep shadows, dramatic light. These are tools. Lots of people use them. The signature comes from how you use them. When you apply them to your own point of view, it becomes something different. Step 2 is to experiment. Take those notes and look for things in common across several of your favorites. Then pick one technique. Not their entire style, just one technical element. If you notice a lot of your favorites shoot wide angle, go shoot wide for a week. But don't try to recreate their images. You're not trying to be the next whoever. Just explore what wide angle does for your way of seeing. And write it down on a sticky note and paste it to your monitor. Somewhere you're going to see shoot wide angle or whatever technique you're testing every day, so you don't just do it once and forget about it. You might love it, you might discover you hate it, and that's valuable too, because it's just as important to know what you dislike so you can make intentional choices about what does and doesn't go into your photos. Give each experiment at least a week, maybe a month if you're shooting less frequently. The goal isn't to master it, just to see how it feels. Now, step 3 is to compare. Look at the results of your experiments and then compare it to the works of your favorites. What I would do is import your images and your inspiration images into a mood boarding app, like Freeform if you're on Mac, or Milanote if you're on Windows, so you can look at everything side by side to see the differences. Again, not to figure out how to copy. You're not trying to make it blend in. You just want to see what's working, what's not working, and what's missing, what your next experiment should be. And I get it, this part can feel defeating. You line your images up next to your heroes and think, well, mine look like garbage. We all do this. This is a universal thing. But you're not comparing for judgment, you're only comparing for direction. Just keep in mind how many years ahead of you they are in their practice. You're only comparing to learn, not to jump over the bar. This compare step is also where a lot of people get stuck for a different reason. They try a technique they love in another photographer's work, and it just doesn't fit their own. That's not failure, that's insight. Maybe you love dark shadows in someone else's work, but when you try it yourself, your photos feel dull instead of atmospheric. That tells you something about what you might need to do differently next time. Maybe you need punchier light so the bright areas balance out the dark areas. because without contrast, it can feel dull. Sometimes what makes a technique work is the second technique you combine with it. So even if the first experiment doesn't work, try a different angle before you move on entirely. But at the same time, there's no reason to force it if you've given it a fair try. I can't tell you how many times I've tried to get into using grain and motion blur in my photos because I always love it when I see it in other people's work. I've tried so many times, editing and re-editing, trying to make it work. Like, I was convinced this was the missing piece. But when I went back to the photos the next day, I would look at them and think, yeah, this isn't me at all. I don't see things in that abstract kind of way that lends itself to heavy grain and blur. I see clean lines and organized compositions. Style is about what feels natural when you're behind the camera. Now this is where it gets fun. The final step is to iterate. This is that part of the quote, add what is uniquely your own. This is where it stops being about anyone else's work and becomes yours. You've tested wide angles, you like them. You've tested warm colors, it works for you. Now when you shoot, you're not thinking about photographer A or photographer B, but this scene needs a wide angle lens and dramatic light. But here's what makes it your style. How you see the world is different from everyone else. The subjects you're drawn to, the moments you notice, that's not something you learn from analyzing other photographers. That's just you. So when I shoot, I'm not just using wide angles and warm light because I've learned those techniques. I'm using them to capture my perspective, the way I see contrast between small human moments and larger spaces, the way I'm drawn to everyday scenes that feel cinematic. That's the uniquely your own part. The techniques are just the language. Your perspective is what you're saying. You're taking all the different tools you've learned and combining them with your own unique eye to create something that's yours. When I apply those technical things to my way of seeing, it creates my look. Is it perfectly unique and original? No. Does it need to be? Also no. Your eye is what makes the final image different from everyone else's. And here's the thing, and I really mean this. Your style will evolve. What works for you today might feel limiting in a couple years. New influences will come in, you'll try new techniques. Your style isn't a box you lock yourself into. It's just where you are right now. So don't stress about finding your style like it's a destination. I'm still working on mine, and I've been shooting for almost a decade now, which, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that long. It's a process. You're always evolving. It's not about getting to the top of the mountain. And honestly, there is no top. As cheesy as it sounds, it's about enjoying the climb and seeing where photography takes you. Just trying to get a little better each time you pick up your camera. Now go shoot something. And if you try it and it feels weird, good. That's insight. That's how you find your thing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.